Hi, in this section, we're going to talk about leaders need to communicate to lead. Communication is an amazing leadership tool that sometimes a lot of leaders don't have. So the more you hone-tune this and practice on these skills and become aware of some of the techniques I'm going to teach, the better a leader you're going to be and the better people are going to follow you. See, a lot of people think communication is just speaking and telling people and talking, and if they don't think the person they're leading is getting the information, they tell them more and tell them more and tell them more. And that's not the importance of communication. Actually, the importance of communication is the actual received message. For example, this could be you as the leader and you're communicating to others. Now, in that communication, you think that you're covering all this 100% of communication. But in reality, they've done studies that the received message, okay, so it's the received message, is only this part here. And it can be, over 20%, 30%, sometimes 40%, but it's never 100%. And it's never 100% there. There's always problems with it. So as a leader, if you can learn what some of those things are to increase that in the sense of the received message, the better you're going to be in your leadership skills. For example, what if I said to you, what if someone socially, either a friend, a girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever it might be, came to you and said, I just want to let you know something, I love you, but. Now, in that statement, 3 words are saying, I love you. But what's the received message? Whoop, something's going to come. Because of the fact they said but, you're like, oh, something's going to come. That's the received message. That's what I'm talking about in this area. And sometimes we can, under pressure or under our day-to-day business or life, we're saying things as a leader that actually gives a completely different received message than what we're intending. And it can be through emotive words, it can be through non-emotive words, it can be from the different ways we say things, the environment we're speaking in. In fact, there are 3 major areas that affect communication and affect this area here. Number 1 is the obvious, it's the visual, it's the environment. What do I look like? What do they look like? What environment am I in? Are you in the office? Are you in a casual place in a cafe? What is it that is the visual environment? Even if you're talking to someone on the phone and as a leader you're giving instructions or talking about how to solve certain things, do not think that there's no visual involved. People picture things as they're hearing different things. So the visual applies there as well. The second is the auditory, meaning the way I say it, my pitch, my volume. Am I angry? Am I not angry? Is that coming through? Am I soft? Am I motivated? Am I demotivated? What are the different things that are to do with my voice and the auditory and there that affects this received message? And then the third is the actual words I'm using. What's the language? What's the linguistics that I'm using in that different thing? Like that statement I said to you, if someone came to you socially, I love you, but you know that that one word is, even though it's only 7% of the conversation, or 25% of those 4 words, it's still affecting you. So you need to, as a leader, understand that there's 3 major areas that you need to adjust and work on and identify. You don't just go and talk to people. You need to prepare. You have to have strategy behind those 3 different environments. For example, sometimes I'm talking with staff members for update meetings. Sometimes I'll take them out of the office in that visual environment and take them to a cafe because I just know the received message will be different and better depending on my strategy. I might want to motivate. I might want to ask some personal things. So I don't want to do that in the office. So my communication and my leadership skill increases if I'm increasing that received message with them. So you need to look at that. The percentages are always interesting. They say that from research around face-to-face communication, visual caters for around about 59%. The auditory is around about 34%. Words is only 7%. But I still believe that they all combine together and are very effective. But make sure you're aware, visual, auditory, and the words you use, and have strategy behind it. Use those to your advantage to get an increased received message depending on what you're wanting to do as you lead. Because remember, as I said, leaders communicate to lead. I want you to lead. I want you to learn how to lead different people and be known, just like we talked in the last section, that other people look at you and admire you as a leader. And that's one of the things. Because one of the greatest things that I've found through the last few decades of working with large companies, small companies, large departments, different organizations, out of the top 2 main things of why people complain in the workplace, communication is number 2. Lack of communication, lack of direction, lack of giving the right task, lack of caring in the communication. So the better that you learn how to use those 3 and get a better received message, the better leader you're going to be and more admired as being a good leader, because it's a trait of good leaders, is learning how to communicate. Taking the accountability as the leader, not blaming it on them that they don't listen, they don't care, they don't do what I say. Instead of that, you look at being accountable for how can you change it? How can you actually get them to the point where they are receiving more? You lead, communicate to lead. The other part that I want to mention here, because there's three parts, the other part that I want to mention is that there's two things when you're finally in that face-to-face communication of what to do. Don't just listen and think that you know what you're getting. I want you to learn how to ask questions to identify and ask questions how to clarify. So identify what's being said to you and identify what you're saying to them. Ask them questions and then repeat back or say other things. Find out exactly how well this received communication is going. Find out how to bring them more across each other. Start to ask questions to identify. Are they receiving your message? What message are they receiving that you're communicating? Start to do that. The second thing is clarify. I don't know if any of you have ever done the exercise Chinese Whispers, but I've done that with several groups of people when I'm doing trainings. And one of the things that I've noticed, of course, is that as you pass the message or people pass the message, it starts to deteriorate and change, and sometimes it's quite humorous. However, the other thing I've noticed in human behavior is that as the message is being passed, if they didn't quite understand what they received, they will then add things to the story or drop things from the story so it makes sense to them, to the next person. That's how things change. It's not just memory. And so you need to not just identify, but you need to clarify what someone's saying. You need to clarify, is this true? Is this it? What about this? What about that? So you're clarifying and not assuming. It's a powerful thing. So the first thing, as I said before, is you're going to look at the visual, auditory, and the word level and how to have the strategy behind that so that you're communicating to lead someone. And the second is that you need to learn to ask questions about how to identify and to clarify things. And you need to be able to work with that, because things like that are very powerful to increase this message. So it's not just beforehand, and I want to encourage you to do that. Start to plan strategies, plan different things around your communication. Don't just jump in and do it. Even if you've got to get on the phone in 5 minutes, sit down for 1 minute and identify how are you going to say it, where are you going to say it, what words are you going to use, how is it going to be influenced, and how are you going to increase this received message, and do that. And then the third thing I want to talk about is how you can actually use certain words and certain phrases in certain ways to lead people according to their perception. It can be that powerful. I've done a lot of study in the 80s and early 90s in linguistics of communication, languages, how things work in cultures and changing cultures of companies. And and problem solving within that. And linguistics is a major thing, which is about language and words. And there was a research done where they got a whole group of people to come together and they wanted to test this, about how certain ways that we as leaders speak can affect things. So they got a whole group of people and they split them into 3 groups and put them into 3 separate rooms. Okay, and what they did is all of these 3 had to watch a car accident that had happened on a video, and they all watched the same car accident. However, they were given different questions. So Group A, and I'll just get these for you here. Group A was actually asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? Okay, so this group is asked, they've watched a car accident, they all watched the same. How fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? Group B were asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? And then Group C was asked, how fast are the cars going when they made contact? So the only difference here, they've all watched the same car accident, is that we're asking them a question including when they smashed into each other, when they hit each other, when they made contact. And so, just what you've probably thought already, the answers were very different in their perception based on the question and the words in the question. First group, where it was smashed into each other, they thought they were traveling 40 miles an hour. Second group, that saw the exact same video, when it was said hit each other, they thought 34 miles an hour, and this is the whole group had agreed to it. The last group where it said made contact with each other, they thought about 31 miles an hour. So you have these different perceptions of speed of the cars of the same thing. So why is that possible? Because of the communication. Because of the question that was asked, had emotive words in different levels between a different received message. So smash to them meant fast. Hit each other meant yes, they'd hit, but it was quite neutral. And made contact is just a very simple, non-emotive word. But it affected the result. It affected of what they said. So they decided to test the group with even more, because just by changing the way of the question actually influenced the perception that it showed up. And that's a powerful thing about leaders communicating to lead people in different things. I've had instances where I've said certain things and I've gotten a really bad reaction, but I've said the same type of information but with different words and different things when I planned it, and I had a completely different response. One was reactive, one was responsive. One didn't want to do it, and one was motivated to do it, based on the word level that I use. So as leaders, you can start to learn what these words are. You can start to learn of how to know that you affect this, and you affect what they end up doing based on your communication to lead. They came back to these groups, and they asked them this very simple thing. If they had seen the broken headlight, the interesting thing is that all of the groups said yes, but there was in fact no broken headlight. So even to the point of, did you see the broken headlight? Whether they answered out of peer pressure or whatever, it doesn't matter. All three groups said yes, when in fact there was no broken headlight. So it's a very powerful thing, communication. That's why I have it included in here as a key for you about leaders need to communicate to lead as a foundational principle of leadership. If you and when you start to get your communication skills, you develop around the visual, the word, the auditory, plan around that before you communicate. If you look at how when you are communicating, you identify and you clarify, you do both, and you learn how to ask questions to make sure this is increased. You're not only going to get people doing more of what you want, you're going to solve more problems, you're going to have better project management when you're moving through things, you're going to be aware of a lot more things when people communicate to you, but more importantly, you're going to lead through communication. Leaders communicate to lead. Okay, so you're not the mind of a manager, you have the heart of a leader. So you're going to actually be leading through communication. Take time to plan this, take time to strategize it, take time to put things in there to get the results that you want. And then you will increase your leadership skills at least twofold, if not more, by how powerful it is when you learn how to communicate more effectively and you take the accountability for that. Thank you.